open that page, I'll search for my fix, find what I need in the deep dark abyss.
Welcome to the AI Skeptics podcast. This week we have Fields medalist Jacob Tsimerman visiting us to talk about his math, his transition to AI safety. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to start with the math stuff and hear about you and what brought you into number theory to start. And maybe you could even talk about what is a Fields medal, since not all of our listeners are mathematicians. It's the biggest deal in math. But yeah, maybe you can talk about it a bit.
Sure. Like how I got started, just to frame the question, like how I got started in math or what do I do in grad school?
What drew you to it in the first place? Like, did you grow up as a 5-year-old being like, I love prime numbers? That's how it happened to me, by the way.
Sure. Yeah, it's how it happened to me.
Okay, sweet.
When I was 3, I liked math puzzles and I kept doing math. My parents and grandpa kept giving it like the most boring story imaginable. It was just always fun and I always did it.
Did you have mathematicians in your family? Your parents?
No, but I have like a STEM family. My dad was a computer scientist and my mom got a math degree, and then she she was raising her kids, my siblings and myself, but she then became a high school math teacher and she then transitioned to QA analyst. And my grandpa was a successful physicist at Russia.
So kind of.
And so
so kind of like you're in a math family.
I guess kind of. Yeah, that's fair. I'll take it.
Okay.
I had some math role models for sure. Yeah, and that kept going. Then I got into competition math, which I really liked for a long time. Like, I don't know, maybe 8-year period or something where I was doing that. And then I went to Toronto, to U of T, and undergrad was like amazing because I got to do math all the time. So that was like a fantasy for a while.
And that was in Toronto?
Then I went to, in Toronto. And then I went to Princeton for graduate school, which had all the graduate school things. You know, it was great, but it was very stressful and it was isolating, but I made a lot of great friends. So a lot of, ups and downs. So that's math, I guess. I think I covered the question.
Who was your advisor at Princeton?
Peter Sarnak. I was actually told to go, I was advised to seek out Peter Sarnak because he's like at the center of everything and he yells a lot and I yell a lot.
Yeah. I once invited
the two
him.
Of us yelled well.
I once worked with Barry Mazur at Harvard, who was my thesis advisor. When I was a postdoc at MIT, I worked with him on like making the number theory seminar fun, and we had Peter Sarnak. And one of the rules we were like trying to stick to was to like make sure that the speakers only spoke for 50 minutes and like actually allowed questions. And after like an hour and 40 minutes, Peter turned to us and said, "How much time do I have left?"
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So then you got a job at Toronto and you just got really into your research. And like you just, through my friends, we might have met a couple times, but like I don't know you personally, but through my friends, you're like a happy-go-lucky, sweet man who just loves math, and we're like totally into it. Do you think that describes you?
I don't know if happy-go-lucky is the complete description of my identity. I don't take offense at it. I do really love math, and one thing I decided pretty early on is that I'm gonna basically only do math with other people because doing it by yourself is hard and it's lonely.
Yeah.
And then I also decided that other people are basically only going to be my best friends for the same reasons. And so I basically stuck to that conviction. You talk to other people and for various reasons. And that made math a lot more fun, I think, for me than the counterfactual.
Okay, so maybe happy-go-lucky should be replaced by fun-loving.
Sure, that sounds much more applicable.
Well, I don't want to.
Yeah, go ahead, Jake.
I don't want to like rush us off of our first topic and onto the second, but it really begs the question for me. Like, so math is not just something that you enjoy personally, but it also sounds like it's a connection with some of your favorite people and a way to spend time with them. So transitioning from being a full-time mathematician to working on AI safety is like more than just changing what you're going to be working on. It's who you're going to be working with, or maybe your friends are coming with you. But like,
and where you're going to live, presumably. Like, presumably
Right.
you're not going to stay in Toronto. Am I right?
Yeah, it's a lot of changes. You guys are right about that. I am bringing some of my friends with me to AI safety.
Oh,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me just frame it up for our listening audience here that Jacob is moving from math to OpenAI, where you plan to work on AI safety, as I understand. So that's a big change, and it made headlines in in both the math and AI safety worlds because you're a major prominent mathematician. So for you to leave that field is notable.
I'm just going to pause this for a second because we didn't actually talk about the Fields Medal, and like we said we would.
Sure.
To other people, I just say this is the Nobel Prize for math because the myth is Nobel's wife had an affair with a mathematician, so he was against math as a.
From what I understand, that's totally a myth.
No,
that
but you know what? We like
invented.
it. Come on, Jacob, don't ruin our our sex appeal. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Mythological sex appeal. We'll take it. So I guess, so you won that recently. And that must have been cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nod. Okay. What was the moment where you're like, okay, now I'm moving? Like, how did you decide? Like, was it the Fields Medal? Did it precipitate like a rethinking of your life's trajectories? How did you? Like, did you wake up at night,
Sure.
in the morning after a sleepless night being like, this isn't the right thing to be doing? Like, what happened?
So I can answer it. It's a big question. So we're done with the Fields Medal. We define it as the Nobel Prize. We're happy with this. Yes, I'm happy with this. If you are,
you okay?
we can.
You can
I'm
say
fine
more.
with it, yeah.
You can say more.
No. That's totally fine. Let's move on. That's cool. AI safety is kind of a big answer. So I've been aware of AI as a concept and the possibilities for it and the potential that there's going to be risks from it for about 2 decades. I've been in and around the communities. I've had friends who were deeply in the communities, and I've been sort of following the discourse, going to some of the events, and I've kind of been living in 2 worlds where I wasn't sure. I legitimately wasn't sure. At first, I was pretty dismissive, and then I became actually not sure for like 10, 12 years whether AI was going to become a big deal, let's just say. And I kind of understood that like if it was, then I was going to switch probably, and like a bunch of stuff was going to happen. And I think 2016 is when I started being like, oof, my probabilities are shifting from like pretty sure it's not going to happen to I don't know anymore. And then when ChatGPT came out, I actually called one of my friends that same day, and I was like, I was wrong. You were right. This is going to be everything. I know you guys don't agree with me. That's fine. I'm just saying my point of view. And so that happened, and I was like, okay, this is a big deal. I'm probably eventually going to switch. But there was a bunch of reasons why I didn't immediately. And so the things that precipitated that are a few things. One is that I had a bunch of math projects I wanted to finish up and math grad students that I wanted to sort of finish up with. One is that I wanted to try and win the Fields Medal by that point because I thought that I was probably close. And I thought that I would regret it if I didn't put in an effort. One is that coding agents became a big deal. And so the barrier to being like a software engineer, or at least like pretending at a software engineer, like I don't want to, I think it's false that people just now with coding agent are as good at being a software engineer as actual software engineers. I am confident there are lots of skills and heuristics those people have that I don't have. But at least stop being like a major bottleneck to doing serious projects. I have since done what I would consider serious projects that like I was interested in, and I coded up a bunch of stuff, without actually knowing how to code all that well. So those are probably the major precipitators.
Yeah, that's a good list. And by the way, just even in your description of shifting probabilities, I sense that you have been in this community because that's how they talk. And when I say they, I mean like I've also been interested in this stuff for a long time. When I say this stuff, it's like a larger group. It wasn't specifically AI, but it was like effective altruism. And that world certainly was talking, it was futurism, it was like talking about the future, like what's going to happen? Are the computers going to blah, blah, blah? And they, Like they think in terms of probability. Can you say a little bit more about that way of thinking about the world?
Probabilistically, you mean?
Yeah. Most
well,
people don't do that, Jacob. Just to be clear, like most people don't say, "Oh, my probability
The
shifted."
doom is such and such.
Well, it's not. The probability stuff is long before P Doom. To
Sure.
be
Oh,
to be
I
honest,
think it came from finance. Like I worked as a quant in finance for a while, and we were constantly talking about probabilities there. I think it comes from a basic notion of Bayesian,
Yeah.
like prediction, but I don't use it for myself, like for my life choices. So I do think there's something there.
Yeah, I mean, so to me, so I think basically everyone's overconfident all the time about everything. This is just a thing. This is something I've always thought. But then, so the thing you quote unquote should do is keep lists of probabilities diligently around for everything that's going to happen. But that's really hard because there's too many things and it's hard to keep lists. And that's an actual practical challenge. And then some subset of, I'm sure many, many people, finance people, the rationality community, whatever you want to call it, have gotten pretty good, I would say, and I have learned from that community, how to do that in a manageable way. So how to sort of isolate different parts of your life that you actually want to try thinking about how likely this to happen. And normally it's not really about actually keeping numbers, though there is some amount of keeping numbers some of the time, but mostly about some combination of math and gut checks to sort of think about which worlds are still plausible. Because sometimes it's really true that there's sort of, you don't know what's going to happen a year from now, and you kind of want to you want to hedge your bets, as you say, which is literally a finance thing.
Yep.
But also something you want to do in your life a lot, where depending what outcome is going to occur, you sort of don't want to throw all your chips into one basket, assuming it might be the wrong basket. I forgot the beginning of your question, but that's sort of like, it's kind of how I'm living now, definitely, and it's how I was living 10 years ago, where like, I don't know almost anything. I have opinions, and I don't want to ignore my opinions because, I have some confidence in them, but like, how good is AI going to get? How fast is AI going to get good at math, for example? What's going to happen politically? What's going to happen in my personal life? Like, I sort of make a list of these things. I try to think of which ones seem likely enough to take seriously, and then make sure I'm not kind of screwing myself over in any one of those worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Did I answer your question?
Well, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I asked you to talk about the way of thinking the world as probabilistic, and you mentioned, for example, having a list of some types of probabilities. Like, so which are the ones, if you don't mind me just getting more specific, which are the ones that alerted you or alarmed you enough to decide, okay, this is my new field, AI safety? Presumably the probabilities on like how AI is going to turn out in the medium or long term.
Well, I basically, so I had probabilities on like reality, which, is a confusing notion because reality only works one way, but we don't know how it works because, again, it's hard. So the way I thought about AI like 20 years ago was I was like, okay, there's this thing called programming where you kind of step by step, encode what you want to do, and computers can do that, and they're going to get faster. And we all know this. All of us now are super smart because we were raised with computers, and so it's hard to debate them. This kind of thing happens where like something sometimes shifts from the realm of philosophy to just being obvious. Like, as a simple example, when I was a grad student, I remember having philosophical discussions about the value of a calendar. Like, should you have a calendar or should you remember all your stuff? And there's pluses and minuses, and then you become like a busy adult, and then it stops being a conversation. You need a calendar. I mean, you're not going to remember everything. So same with AI. I was like, there's programming plus, which is like encode some step-by-step process, but add in some probability in a smart way, add in some big data, add in some like, some heuristic arguments. And there was like, clustering and topological arguments in big data that were around when I was, and they were doing some stuff, but it still seemed to me like there was programming plus, and then there was like intuition, or like what humans do. And there's many things there are many examples of things humans do that at least 20 years ago, people had no idea how to make, machines do. Have a conversation, make your way to the airport, process images, whatever it is. And I basically had no examples of things that were beyond programming plus and sort of before intuition. It was sort of a big step change. And so, you don't know. Maybe humans are special. Maybe they aren't special, but computation is just super difficult and we get lucky in the super. It's not clear. And so then what happened was.
So Jacob, can I pause you there for a second? If I understand you correctly, you're saying that, I think you're saying that you're imagining that AI or whatever the future holds is going to be intuitive.
So I think it already is doing a lot of the things that I would have put in the category of intuition, as would I think other people.
Can you just be really precise? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, so I was about to actually. So
okay.
The first thing that it did that was in this realm that was tangible for me was AlphaGo. So it started to play Go. Now Go is just a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not such a big deal if somebody could play Go, but it was one of these things that humans discussed as like, you can play chess but not Go, because Go really requires a global understanding and all this stuff. And, it sounds silly now, but maybe it was true. I don't know. Now we figured it out and the answer is no, it can play Go. And that was scary. Like that was genuinely scary for me and a lot of people. It was like world shifting because it was like, oh, here's a task that I genuinely wasn't sure about that ends up being in the no. Programming plus can actually get there.
Got it.
And so that shifted my probabilities
in
a pretty serious way.
That's a really good example.
Now I want to go from.
So there were two other.
Oh, yeah. So you start to see some capabilities that go beyond programming plus, maybe into the realm of intuition, and then. I recently saw your paper on omnicidal futures, right? Like this paper sketching out classes of scenarios where AI could lead to extinction of the human race. And to me, there's a big gap between those 2 points. But like to you, maybe it's more obvious. Once we're in the post-programming plus like intuition world, we should be worrying about these kinds of scenarios. But can you talk a little bit to that connection?
Yeah. So let me, if you don't mind, I'll get your questions. Let me say 2 other things that happened. I think they'll make my thinking clear. So that happened, and I still wasn't sure that programming plus and intuition were sort of the same. It was reachable because Go wasn't. I didn't have such strong priors on it. Then I remember in 2019ish. I'm getting the dates wrong for sure, but Ilya Sutskever and Greg Brockman were presenting some results, I think from OpenAI at the time. I don't remember which company was doing this, where they were typing in like, hey, make a circle. And the computer would make Python code to display a circle. And then they would type in, now make the circle bounce from side to side. And the circle will start bouncing from side to side. And this was basically magic. Like it's if someone doesn't really, again, intuition shift based on what we see, right? So if you're used to not thinking about the stuff and then seeing ChatGPT, it's like, well, what's the problem? But that's crazy. If you think from a classical programming perspective, how am I going to code up something which I type in a sentence and it's going to like understand what I want and then turn that into code? I mean, that's insane. We can't do that without neural nets, essentially. And so then I basically shifted most of the way. It became like 50-50. And then when ChatGPT came out, when it started to talk, then I was forced to fully undo this notion of intuition versus, I was like, okay, these are the same concept. There's nothing humans can do now. I have no more intuition about a thing humans can do. And the reason that like computers can't do that anymore, because once you can talk, you can do everything. There's no task. How should I say this? There is no task that humans are capable of, that I am capable of, where I can introspect and think I am doing this in a fundamentally more complicated way than what I do when I speak. Like speaking is as good as it gets. I'm only as smart as my ability to talk. So once that happened, then I was like, cool, now there's no limit. AIs are obviously going to be faster. They're obviously going to improve faster because of 1,000 different reasons. So then it became clear to me, as it has to several people before me decades ago, that AIs will just become, if we are willing to make them such, robustly better than humans at everything. And if you believe that, if that's a notion which, so you could dismiss that notion as science fiction. You could think, okay, that's plausible. I'm not convinced. If you are convinced, then the omnicide paper is like the obvious paper to write. Like those risks are the obvious risks to consider.
Sure.
If you think of AI as an actual civilization of like aliens running around, like ET type aliens who are actually smarter than us, the thought of like, well, should we be scared that they're going to take over, is a pretty natural thought to have.
The place where I want to go in is on whether conversational ability, like if I'm hearing you, it's that once you saw it can talk, it's like, oh, we're there.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a version of an AI that has conversational ability, but not actually real grounding of intelligence or worldview or creativity or something? But like conversation is kind of like what I took from your view. But
I'll say it in a stronger way, like just to be fair to you, Jacob, because we definitely disagree. Just to be like very honest about it. Like we think of, or I'll speak for myself, but I think Jake backs me up on this, that it's not talking. It's like it's verbalizing. Or you can call it talking if you want. That depends on your definition, but it's not reasoning.
John Warner says generating syntax, right? It's a syntax generator.
Yeah, it's like using language without reasoning. We understand exactly how it's doing it. It's complicated, as we all know, as is Go, but it's not, and it's not reasoning. It's just saying words. It's outputting words is even a better way of saying it, because as soon as you say talking, what I feel like is happening, and bear with me, is that like it is hijacking our notion of consciousness, and it's very good at that. It's hijacking our notion of trust. It is designed to make us trust it, but that doesn't make it trustworthy. It's hijacking our notion of consciousness, but that doesn't make it conscious. So it allows us to project consciousness, to project reasoning, to project even wisdom sometimes. And that's really where I'm going with this, which is that, I wasn't surprised by the Go thing at all. In fact, the way I look at it is, it was like a very small toy universe of well-defined success, which is to win at the game of Go. And it was, of course, very, very complicated. But it's not surprising to me that a computer, which is very, very fast and in a very strong way, superhuman, Jacob. Like, by the way, one of the things that I keep going back to is that calculators for the last 50 years have been superhuman, like it's smarter than humans at calculation. That doesn't make them that doesn't make them intelligent. That makes them very good at certain things. So I would argue that like it's still just very good at certain things, but the sort of hype and this talk, and in fact the societies that you're joining, are convinced, they have like drunk the Kool-Aid because they are projecting consciousness, or they're projecting wisdom, or at least they're projecting true reasoning, where I think there is none, and it scares me. It scares me that there's so much energy going towards it.
Yeah. I think I understand that point of view. I guess my question is, so we have a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
I'm happy to debate or discuss or sort of tell you what I think, but I want to know how you want to spend this time, because this conversation could easily go on for like 8 hours.
Oh yeah,
and I'm happy
I'm
happy to engage it. Again, I'm not trying to shut it down. I'm just trying to ask how you want to spend our time. Well,
it's partly up to you. I'd love to. I mean, it is completely up to you. You could hang up on us. I guess I'd love to hear a thought about what I said, like why
about this,
how you distinguish reasoning and talking from just output.
Yeah.
But also, I would love to hear what you're actually planning to work on. What do you think are the most important and most urgent problems?
Sure. So let me respond to what you said then. Or maybe not debate, but I'll tell you how I think about it. So I think two things simultaneously that I wanna describe. The first is, I think consciousness is an interesting and important question. Like, I do not want to dismiss consciousness. It's a real thing. Wisdom is some kind of real thing. Yeah, that's the first. It's very simple. I just, what I'm going to say next is going to make it seem like I want to dismiss those, and I don't.
Right.
The second is that the focus on consciousness and the focus on our human conception of wisdom and creativity is, I think, very harmful to any kind of discourse attempting to operationalize intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So one, I think, of the big realizations and successes of the rationalist community and the AI community, these are big communities, but whatever. Yeah. I'm going to assign it to them anyways. Sure. Is to get very diligent and formal about the process of operationalizing what it means to be intelligent, and what they have. Their basic tool is to take intelligence and try to break it up into tasks, given a goal, can you achieve that goal? Now, one thing which I think is currently, to bring it more into focus, one thing that I think is currently poisoning the discourse in AI and mathematics, around AI and mathematics, is the culture is very married to this notion of creativity. Of is AI creative, or is it just doing X, Y, or Z? Okay, it did this, but here's how it did it. It's not creative. And I basically don't think creativity is real in the sense that I don't think it's an atomic unit in the way that we treat it. Like, I don't think it's meaningless to talk about creativity. There is something there, just like it's meaningless to talk about semantics. But we talk about creativity as in, like, let's take a piece of, like, take an idea or a paper or a math result and break it up into the, 20% diligence, 40% knowing the literature, and 40% creativity. And I don't think it works like that. And moreover, it's sort of the fact that it's so unquantifiable, creativity, and it's so inherently like intuitive and based on our gut, means that it's very easy to fall into the shifting targets trap. So if you follow the math and AI conversation for the past 5 years, which I followed very closely, people have been saying it's doing X, but it's not being creative for various notions of X. So first there was the conversation that it can speak, but it can't do math. And it can't do math because the search space is too big, and we have to be creative to even understand any kind of math. Okay, so now there's no question that it can understand math in the sense of if you ask it a math question, it will give you a math answer that most of the time you will accept as correct and valid. Like if a human told it to you, you would be satisfied. Define this object. Is every number field with 3 primes that are split have all the primes that are split? They'll say no. Here's some example. Okay. Then they were like, well, it can't solve problems because the exploration space is too big. You need insight and creativity to solve even basic problems. Yeah. So now it can solve basic problems. It can solve Olympiad problems.
Yeah.
And then there was, it can do research math. Now
we had Daniel Litt on a couple months ago.
Okay, and he was giving you the spiel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but now, let me just add one more sentence, so to say it, which was that now it's like, it proved non-selfie groups exist. I'll be honest, I'm not an expert about non-selfie groups, but I know people who are experts, and I have seen them try hard to prove non-selfie groups exist for many, many, many years. And the proof, like all math proofs, is a sequence of step-by-step deductions. And there is this trap that people fall into early on. I actually learned this from competition math, which is don't judge a proof by how short it is or how long it is or how difficult it is once you have seen it. And we're 100% falling into it with AI. Okay, so I think you see what I'm saying. And my counter to what you were saying about, you didn't find Go surprising, and I'm not challenging you. I believe you that you didn't find it surprising, would be to sort of try and what task now can AI not do concretely that we can actually judge that humans can do that you would declare to be genuine understanding or creativity or reasoning? And if there is no such task, then in terms of discussing the future, what value does that concept hold? That's sort of how I think about it.
That's a really well-defined question, Jacob. I appreciate that. And you're right. I actually said this to Daniel when we talked about Erdish, which is that maybe what we imagine is mathematical elegance is in fact a new way, or maybe a shorter, more shortcut way in sense, but can be assembled by actually these pushy old arguments that the AI is very, very good at. And so maybe all future math theorems can be proved by AI. It still doesn't make me think it's wise. And you're right. Wise is, you started with intuition. You said, oh, it's like intuitive. And so like my version of that where it would be surprising, and I haven't seen it yet. So I haven't gotten to the point where you got, right? Because you were surprised by something that seemed intuitive, the go thing. What I haven't seen is anything that seems wise. Like it seems task oriented only. But I don't think you've actually disagreed with me there.
Well, I mean, I think you did ask if there's a task that can't be measured and benchmarked, how important could it be to the future? Did I catch that right?
I guess I'm just challenging you maybe a little bit in a very non-confrontational
Well, here's
way.
We're here to be challenged.
Seems hard to benchmark.
Sure.
Like why you chose well in math to work with your friends and to work in an area that you found like, oh, because I like working with these people. Is that something that AI, that's benchmarkable? Not that's even like AI tractable, but you know, your personal preference to work with friends, that maybe that makes the work more enjoyable, or it gives you a way to spend more time at it without burning out. I don't know what, but like, is that something subject to optimization, that kind of preference?
You're asking, so I just understand your question. You're asking, so I, Jacob, have had made a personal decision based on a preference to work with my friends.
Yeah.
You're asking, can AI do that essentially? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard question because there's at least two things that happen. I think one is that things are hard. Things can be hard for at least two reasons. One is that they're hard to measure, and the other is that they're hard to define. And I think the one that you just asked is kind of hard to define. So, I just communicated to you verbally, like using sounds, some semantics that indicated I have a preference, which is this thing that we, agree makes sense, loosely, for a certain action, and I took that action. AI definitely can, and in fact is currently doing that all the time. It will all the time tell you that, I took action A and not B because I prefer X and not Y. And you can look at its actions and it will in fact have done that. Now you can ask about what's actually going on when it does that, right? I mean, in particular, I sometimes, I do improv. I want to focus on it, but I do improv. And so I pretend a lot of the time. You can ask, is the AI pretending? Is that actually what it wants? Now that's hard to measure because I don't know what it actually wants. It's also hard to define. Like, are you sure it's my preference? I could be lying to you. I could be confused. We could both be confused. Like, we have collectively chosen to give human discourse a lot of leeway and slack in our attempt for shared meaning. And we are not extending that same courtesy to AI systems at all at the moment. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying, I guess, to make what I'm saying more concrete, like we're having a discussion right now about, do humans have values that make sense in some deep, wise way? And does AI, if so, have some version of those values? I don't know the answer to those questions, and I don't mean to dismiss them. That's why I started with point one. They're interesting questions. As far as being worried about AI systems taking over the earth or posing a threat to us, those aren't relevant questions. What's relevant is AI going to behave in a way analogous to humans? Like, if you don't disagree that AI systems can make complicated goals and acquire tools to accomplish those goals and reason over long contexts and cooperate with each other, then it doesn't really matter if if they really are acting out preference functions or not. That's how I sort of think about it.
So is that what you're planning to work on?
Yeah, so I'm going to work on AI safety broadly, and I've been saying I'm kind of a novice in the field, which I guess isn't strictly speaking true, because I've spent a long time in it at this point, and now I've spent quite a bit of time devoting actual research attention to it. So, okay, I'm not fully a novice, but I'm still very much surveying the landscape. So AI safety can mean a bunch of different things. I have a website, mathforAIsafety.org, which is pretty, fairly preliminary, but it has a bunch of links to other websites and organizations, so that's preliminary. So there's many ways to think about it. One way is to, people have research to do what's called interpretability work, which means to understand what AI systems are thinking, or at least, operationally understand what they're thinking, sort of isolate parts of the system we could look at and get some insight into what they might do next or how they're conceptualizing things, what their ontology is. There's tools like that. People talk about solving the alignment problem. I don't like that discourse, but the idea is basically let's make a theory of intelligence in a more fundamental way. So, it sounds a bit like science fiction again, but information theory is something that's very successful. So is complexity theory. The idea is to try to model sort of agents acting in environments or maybe some other ontology in a way that's very theoretical for now. But if we get it to be successful enough, then we can hopefully take that theory and export it onto systems to predict their future behavior or to understand what this notion of values is. Because if we understand values in some sort of more concrete operational way, we can try to endow these systems with values, and with values that are sort of aligned with humans. So there's strategies, sort of various different levels of optimism or sort of ambition. You can try to solve intelligence and then hooray, we're not operating in the dark anymore. You can try to gain partial understanding into these AI systems. There's something I'm excited about, which is formal verification, which is, like Lean formalizes math proofs. You can do the same thing for software, actually, with Lean. You can make programs and you can actually ensure, you can prove that those programs do what you want them to do, assuming you trust the kernel, which you shouldn't right now, but people are working on that as well. And you can try to use that to obtain stronger certificates on what the AI systems do. A lot of safety work right now is we sort of train the AIs to behave in ways that are nice or, that align with our values or that follow instructions. We have them watch each other. We watch for a long time. If nothing goes wrong, we're like, okay, I guess we can trust these things.
Sorry,
there's various reasons to doubt that.
We should stop soon. If you don't mind, I have one more question for you, which is, in our work at Orca and at Ocean, which is a nonprofit that we started a year ago, like what we find is a lot of the AI systems are basically extensions of the values of their deployers and their owners, and they do not agree with the values of the people that are targeted by them or that otherwise are harmed by them. So it's not an alignment of the computer with humans. It's more like, here's how powerful systems work against other humans who are owned by corporations. So it's like human versus human values. And that's how I think about it. Like, I gotta admit, like, the AI values are basically whoever wrote whoever owns it. So I guess my question is, like, in your world view of the AI, like, when something goes wrong, because I agree with you that things will go wrong. I mean, mostly because powerful people put power into the hands of their AI and say, go onto the internet, do whatever you want, like, take control of people's banking systems. Like, but I think of that as strictly the fault of the person who did it. I feel like there's always a human accountable to every harm. And that's my sort of goal in life, is to trace back who did that, like, who's accountable to that mistake. And I'm wondering where that sort of lens lives in your perspective of AI safety. Like, who gets in trouble when something bad happens? Which human can be pointed at?
Yeah. I think what you're pointing at is a super real and important problem that I would love to have, in the sense that I don't think we're at the point where we have to solve the very difficult problem of AIs are actually doing what their owners want. And now we have like a social, political, enforcement, whatever you want to call it, problem of let's get the humans to cooperate so that their AIs cooperate. At the moment, even, in your story, and these really exist, whatever, people who will act maliciously and counter society and all that such, they won't be able to, certainly, as the AI systems get smarter, as the way these things work, get their AIs to do what they even want. So it's worse than a complicated political coordination problem. It's people are unleashing things that wouldn't be coordinated even if they knew how to control them, and they don't know how to control them. So I think what you're talking about is an incredibly important problem that I know friends who are working on, and I support people working on that problem. And I don't think it's the most urgent problem right now.
Because you think it's going to be moot once the computers themselves take over.
More like, I mean, that's the ultimate problem, but more like I think it's moot at the moment because the computer systems themselves are going to pursue unaligned goals that nobody can actually specify, and that naturally leads to them, taking over or otherwise causing problems.
Jacob, thank you so much for joining us today. I really had a fun time talking to you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you both of you. This is really great.
Thanks a lot, Jacob. We'll see you next time, skeptics.